Went through the process. In about 22 days, I got my $27,000 back, and I was a pretty happy guy. Oh, man. So in about 22 days, I had all my money back. And then I started asking questions. And what I realized at the time, HST had been around now for, I'm going to say HST on new construction had been around for 5 years. And still, nobody had a clue. So I asked all the realtors that I talked to. I asked my mortgage broker. I asked my accountant. I asked 20 other accountants. I asked a bunch of tax lawyers. I asked realtor lawyers. Nobody knew. So then I said, you know what? I bet you I could make a dime doing this. So I became the expert at it. Over time, I figured out that there's absolutely no reason why everybody doesn't get their HST back. The biggest reason why people don't get their HST back is nobody asks for it. Okay, we'll kind of go through that as I go. Tell you a little bit more about my story. So, I bought this property, and I thought I can make money at it. Not knowing much about the new construction game, I started to realize that if I rented these properties out, I could make a whopping $100 a month in cash flow. Boy, that was great. I haven't had so much fun for $100 a month in my entire life. So I did what most investors do and figured out how quickly can I sell this, because I want to get that appreciation out. And of course, then we get hit with capital gains, and I can talk a little bit about capital gains as we go along as well. Okay. One of the things I didn't know about until about two and a half years ago was something called delayed occupancy compensation, which of course you guys all know everything about, right? No. Because I know you guys have studied everything there is to do with Tarion. Okay? I knew nothing about delayed occupancy compensation, and on that first purchase I lost $7,500, which would have been my profit on that unit for the next 3 years, because I had no idea. And interestingly enough, nobody else does either. Okay? So we're going to kind of get into that. And like I said, for those people who showed up 5 minutes ago, best thing to do is ask questions as we go along. Okay? So we're going to talk about a number of things. First of all, if you've been here before, we're going to update you on some of the things that have changed. Who did that? Does anybody know? There you go. So we're going to talk a little bit about title insurance. We're going to talk about realtors and how they're using HST Consulting to add value to their services to their client, but also make more money. Okay. We're going to talk about how developers are now using HST. That's actually where I'm going this afternoon, is I'm going to a groundbreaking. Financing of HST, and we're going to talk about this delayed occupancy thing. Okay. Now this delayed occupancy thing is a really interesting issue, especially here in Toronto. Okay, in the Toronto market, it's something like $350 million that doesn't get collected every year. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the delayed occupancy claim. According to Tarion, 38% of all new condos and all townhomes, single detached homes, they're higher, have an occupancy claim. That's actually not true. It's closer to 72%. Okay, so 72% of all new construction out there, there's an opportunity for your client to get an extra $7,500, which is about a 3-year profit on their monthly rent. Okay. The crazy thing about it is nobody knows anything about it. It's part of the Consumer Protection Act, so it has a fairly strong backing with it. But of course, it's administered by Tarion, and we all know that Tarion is more pro-builder than they are the consumer, right? But the rules are very, very, very specific. So if the builder messes up, you have a claim. Now, before we got involved in this, just to give you some background, Tarion processed about 2 claims a month with regards to delayed occupancy. Okay? They processed 250 claims with regards to sink issues every day. Okay, I'm having an issue with my sink. Can you get someone to fix my faucet that costs $49.99? But they process 2 $7,500 transactions every month. That's how bad it is, and that's how little people know about this. You guys should know more about this than everybody, because it's in the back of the purchase and sale agreement. There's a 12-page document that deals nothing but delayed occupancy, okay, called the Tarion Addendum. and you've all read it, right? No. Has to be included in the purchase and sale agreement. It's part of the purchase and sale agreement. It can't be overridden by the builder. Okay? The underlying principle behind this is that all builders are honest. And if the builder messes up, they will tell the clients up front, you're entitled to make the claim of $7,500. That's the underlying rule. As you can imagine, that's not the fact. Okay? In the past 30 days, these are the buildings that we've talked to. If they're highlighted, every single unit in that building has a claim. Okay, so just to give you an idea, if you went to the bond with 672 units, every single unit has a claim of up to $7,500. What I can tell you is about 75% or greater are $7,500. The rest are about $5,000. Now, if you do some quick math, that's about $3.5 to $4 million that the builder will get hit with. Yes?
I have a question that goes back to the origin of my engagement.
Okay.
Not a proper question, but when are you entitled to make a claim for your documents?
Well, that's an important question, so we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay? They have to file this claim within 1 year of getting occupancy. Yes?
But, you know, like when the builder sells a unit, they give a tentative date, and that date changes once or twice, and then they finally give you an occupancy. So within that, builder advising the client, the buyer,
Yep.
you cannot make a claim because the buyer has been advised, right?
Yep.
So when is it that they can make that claim?
Okay. So there's a couple things in there. So let's just take the bond as an example. Okay, 290 Adelaide. The builder has to give notice whenever they want to change the date, right? Because first they've got this tentative date, and then they've got a second tentative date, and then they've got a final date, and then they've got an outside occupancy date. And that's all laid out on the critical dates schedule, okay? And beyond that, there's a walk-away date, we'll call it. Okay, and that walk-away date, so you know, is only for the purchaser's benefit. It's not for the builder's benefit, okay? We know that they are never, ever going to meet that first date. They know they're not going to meet that first date, but they have to come up with a first date, okay? So they come up with this first date, and then they come up with this crazy outside occupancy date, right? I signed a deal the other day. They're saying the first date is going to be January 2019. The outside occupancy date is sometime in 2025. Right? They've given themselves a little buffer there. They know they're not going to meet that first date. Now, one of the problems for most consumers is they think that as long as they meet that outside occupancy date, they've done their job. That's not the case. Okay? The builder can make a whole host of problems or questions or issues as they go along. The other thing that they do is they tell you that they have every right to do what they're doing. And their verbiage is such that we know what we're doing and we're entitled to do this, okay? But if we go to the bond, the second letter that they sent it on the wrong date, okay? They have to give a minimum of 90 days notice every time they change the date, okay? But if you can imagine, you get 672 units. They all started with a different date, so 672 different dates to start with. So what the builder tries to do is after everybody's purchased and they've waited their 10 days and they can't get out, then they change that first date and they change it to the same date for everybody, right? Because it's easier to juggle one ball than 672 balls. Then they start moving the dates along, okay? But if they move the dates along improperly just once, that becomes the firm date. That becomes the absolute last date, okay? So the second letter they did, which they sent to everybody, was wrong. Instead of giving them 90 days notice, which is required, they gave them 75 days. Okay, and because they only gave 75 days, that date became the final date. And that was 1.5 years ago. Most people who purchased at the bond didn't get occupancy until the beginning of December 2017. So everybody who purchased there has a claim from that screw-up date till December, till when they got occupancy. Yes?
You mentioned outside occupancy date.
Yep. What do you mean by that? Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. Does that part make sense? What I often hear when I come to these seminars is people saying, yeah, but they can change the dates as many times as they like. And they can. They can change it 150 times if they like. But they still have to follow very specific rules. And the most important first rule is they have to give 90 days notice. Okay? And that 90th day, the day that they give notice, has to be a business day. Okay? And the day that they're moving it to has to be a business day. Right? And 90 days notice doesn't mean that I mailed it out on the 90th day. It's like proof that you had it in your hands on the 90th day. Okay? And of course, being that they're builders, they administer this job to the lowest person on the totem pole. Typically, the reception person sends out these letters. The reception person, who's oftentimes a temp, sends out these letters that could cost them $7,500 a pop. And that's what happens.
So is the 90 days from the original given occupancy date?
So it's always 90 days. So let's say that I originally said they're going to get occupancy on December 6, 2017. Okay? If I want to change that, I have to count back 91 days and send you notice.
Oh, from the occupancy.
From the occupancy.
Okay.
Then I move it forward, and then I have to go back 90 days again. As you can imagine, it's not the easiest thing, which is to everybody's advantage. The disadvantage, though, is nobody knows, so nobody pays any attention. I'm going to say that, like I said, 70% is more realistic. If I look at, and I look at about 50 to 60 HST claims a month, okay? Of those 50 to 60 HST claims, 95% of them had an occupancy claim. Okay? But most of them I can't deal with anymore because they're beyond the window. And that's one of the biggest issues we have. Okay? So I get occupancy on December 1st, 2016. Okay? I have until December 1st, 2017 to file a claim. If I don't, too bad, so sad. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when we look at the bond, for instance, we've pretty much got about 2.5 months left. As they go up the floors, we have until about the end of February, beginning of March. So anybody who bought there between now and the end of March, I can make claims for. After that, they're dead. Yes.
So the claim can be made regardless of them having the occupancy or not.
They have to get occupancy.
But if they move the occupancy 2 years later, but they
Yep.
only have 1 year to file the claim, how does that work?
It's when you get occupancy. So they can move it down the road to 2023,
Yes.
and they screwed it up in 2019,
Yes.
but they moved to 2023.
Yes.
They can't file until they get occupancy in 2023. But of course, as you can imagine, there's a lot of time that we get to claim for. They get to claim $150 a day without receipts for every day that was missed. Okay, and I will tell you that the average claim is 286 days. Okay, well, the maximum is $7,500. So if you get 50 days, you get the maximum. The average claim is 286 days. That's how many days the average builder is missing because they screwed up the paperwork as they go along. $150 a day. They can also claim any expenses, out-of-pocket expenses. Okay? Now, the other issue with this program is most people think it's only for end users. This is for anybody. Investors can use this program as well. And investors should be using this program as well. What we see a lot of times is I closed on the unit, I sold the unit the next day, which we'll talk about from an HST perspective, but you're still entitled to make that $7,500 claim. And that's $7,500 tax-free money. Okay? And nobody claims this. This year, they did 350 claims in Ontario. Okay? We did 275 of those claims for them. They processed 350 claims in all of Ontario. Bond has 672 claims. Right here in that list, we have about 8,000 potential claims. Most of them will stale date before they get processed because no one will say anything to them. Right? Can you imagine that? So we're good? Okay. So let's kind of go through this. So they must make the claim within 1 year of getting occupancy. And it doesn't matter how long down the road they've got the occupancy, but once they get occupancy, they get those keys, they do their PDI, they've got 1 year to file. Give you a little hint. The people who file first will get paid very quickly. The people who file later, it will take them a while, because all of a sudden the builder goes, oh, we got 50 of these. In the past, they were used to maybe getting one every 2 or 3 years. Now all of a sudden they're getting 50. That's $350,000. They've got to stop for a second and go, hang on a second, what's going on? So they stop the processing very quickly, okay? All the time, builders will tell their clients that they're not entitled. The first response when you file your own claim, you're not entitled. That's what the builder will say, you're not entitled. Okay, and if you go back to them again, they'll say you're not entitled. It's not until you actually take it to conciliation that you'll get paid. Okay, because the builders always say you're not entitled because they want paid money. And if they say you're not entitled, you walk away, life is good. Okay? The rules are very confusing and extremely arbitrary. Okay? It says 90 days. It doesn't say 89 or 90 days. It says 90 days. It says it can't be a holiday, it can't be a Saturday. It has to be. If you put it in the mail, you have 3 days. So if you put it in the mailbox, it doesn't matter if it could be posted and it was expedited, it's 3 days. Okay, if you send it by courier, it's 3 days. Doesn't matter if it's a 24-hour courier. From Terrion's perspective, it's 3 days. So you need to now give 93 days notice. Okay, as you can imagine, any builder who's not from Ontario has no idea how this works, because this doesn't exist outside of Ontario. This is an Ontario-only thing. Okay. Now, here's one of the issues. The builders can change those dates as often as they like. They have to follow the rules, and they make up all sorts of reasons for changing those dates. Okay? So, what you want to look for your clients or for yourself is where there are lots of changes to the occupancy date. Right? The more they change, the more likely they screw it up. Having said that, the average builder screws it up on their first letter. Okay? But the more they change that date, the more they push it out, the more likely of human error. Right? If occupancy goes beyond that outside occupancy date, so we're going to talk about the outside occupancy date, the builder establishes something called an outside occupancy date. So in my case, March 15th, 2025. If the builder gives me the unit after March 15th, 2025, I'm automatically entitled to an occupancy claim. Right? But again, I have to apply. They don't have to give it to me. Right? So they're not going to voluntarily say, oh, hey, here's some money. You have to apply. If you don't apply, you don't get your money. Same rule. If you don't apply within 1 year, you don't get it. That arbitrary outside occupancy date is established by the builder for the builder's benefit. Right? The only way they can change that date is by an amendment. Okay? Now, one of the things about the outside occupancy dates that's interesting is if they miss that outside occupancy date, first of all, now you're entitled to an occupancy claim, right? The purchaser is entitled to cancel the deal at that point and walk away, right? So if my outside occupancy date is January 7th, 2018, and my builder hasn't given me occupancy yet, I can elect to walk away and ask for my deposit back. We all know that. I can also say, but I still want my $7,500. Okay, because just so you know, they don't give you interest on your money. But you can ask for your $7,500, and you are entitled to it. If you walk away from the deal because they didn't meet that outside occupancy date, you're still entitled to get your money. Okay? If you assign the property, or if you purchase an assignment, whoever gets the occupancy is entitled to make the claim. Right? So if you were doing an assignment for your purchaser, you might want to ask for those letters. Right? Why not get them an extra $7,500? They're entitled to it. Okay? So you want to kind of keep that in mind. Now, why I say you can walk away and the builder can't is it's very important to understand. One of the most common things that the builder will do to alleviate this whole issue is they'll tell the purchaser that we need to make an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement. We're not going to be able to meet your outside occupancy date, so we're going to make an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement. Right? And the conversation basically goes like this. I need you to sign this document. And you go, well, I just, and they said, either sign the document or we'll take back the unit and we'll resell it. It's already appreciated by $70,000, right? Which is probably true. So what do you think your purchasers are going to do? I'm going to sign the document. It's like, I'm not going to lose $70,000 over this. I'm going to sign the document. Now, I know there was a contract law conversation a couple weeks ago. They can't take back the unit. They can say whatever they like, but they can't take back that unit. If your client says, no thanks, I'm not signing that, they're entitled to the occupancy claim. The builder can't sell the unit. Okay? If they sign it, they're no longer entitled to the occupancy claim. All right, so $7,500 decision. I'm going to say that 30% of the time, I'm told by clients that they signed an amendment. They had no idea why. They just did. I get calls now from lawyers on a regular basis saying, ABC Build, they've asked all my clients to sign this amendment. What should they do? And of course, I say, no, sign it. And what's their name? Okay. Now, one of the things that if they don't do the amendment, what the builder does is the builder comes up with all sorts of wonderful stories. Okay. First of all, if they give a firm date, it's a firm date. There's no such thing as a second firm date. A third firm date doesn't exist. There's a firm date. If they miss the firm date, they owe money. If they put a second firm date, they owe more money. There's no such thing, okay? The other thing that they'll often do is they'll say, it's not our fault, there was an unavoidable delay. This just happened with one of the builds, 88 Scott Street. 88 Scott Street said that there was an unavoidable delay. One of the pipes on the third floor burst. It wasn't our fault. Everybody gets delayed by a month and a half. The rules don't allow for that. So everybody there is entitled to make a claim. Many times what we'll hear is, we couldn't give you occupancy on time because the kitchen manufacturer went out of business. It's not our fault. That's great. The rules don't allow for that. You picked the kitchen manufacturer, the purchaser didn't. So if you can't give them occupancy, they're entitled to $7,500. Okay. Icon in Waterloo. Not our fault. The city wouldn't give us a occupancy permit. Well, it's because you weren't finished, right? They're saying it's not their fault. It is their fault. The only reason that they can delay this occupancy, the only legal reason, is if they truly have what's called an unavoidable delay. And an unavoidable delay is a very specific thing. It's a fire. I'm not talking about a fire in the boiler room. I'm talking about a forest fire. I'm talking about an act of God fire, right? The entire street went up, right? That's what we're talking about as a fire. A flood. We're not talking about a flood in the basement. We're talking about a dam burst, right? A strike. So if there's a strike like there was in 2016, they can use that as an unavoidable delay, okay? But they can only delay the occupancy for the amount of time that the strike happened. Right? So if the strike went on for 45 days, then we can push all those occupancies out for 45 days. If they push them out by longer, your clients are entitled to claim money. They won't say that. They will say, there was an unavoidable delay, it wasn't our fault, we added 7 months to your delivery. Okay? So what you should be looking for, like I said, lots of changes. Okay? The use of unavoidable delay, I can tell you that 9 times out of 10 if the builders use unavoidable delay, it's wrong. They just made it up. Okay? Changes to the firm date, there's only one firm date. There's no such thing as a secondary firm date. If it goes beyond the outside occupancy date, just so you know, I've done one claim where it's gone beyond the outside occupancy date. Most claims it's because they screwed up on the first letter. Okay? And if they try to use an amendment. If If they tried to use an amendment, your client was entitled to money. So now the question is, did they sign the amendment or not? And if they did sign the amendment, now did they sign the amendment and was the amendment properly structured? The amendment has to say that I'm voluntarily signing this agreement, knowing full well that I'm giving up my rights to $7,500. Now, at some point, if your client's signing a document that says, knowing that I'm giving up my rights to $7,500, you got to question whether or not you should have this as a client, because they're really not the brightest, right? If they sign an amendment saying that they're voluntarily giving up X, then they've lost the rights to make a claim. But of course, most builders are not going to put that in the documents. They're just going to say, I'm voluntarily signing the document. That make sense? This is the simplified process to how the Tarion Delayed Occupancy Compensation Program works. And all your different dates and your firm dates and your delayed occupancy dates and outside occupancy dates and all that stuff. It's nice and simplified for the client, so the client will have no problems at all understanding that. Okay. As you can imagine, they don't understand it. The lawyers don't understand it. The lawyers don't even know. 9 times out of 10, they have no idea whether the client's entitled to an occupancy claim. Okay. Because by the time the lawyer gets the paperwork and they're doing the closing, they've just got the paperwork on the closing. They didn't get all the letters leading up to that. They don't know that the client was pissed off because they were supposed to get occupancy back in 2017 and they're getting occupancy in 2021. And quite frankly, they don't care. They're getting paid their $5.95 to close a deal. They're not going to go through the effort to figure out whether or not you have more money. Okay? But you want to look for it for your clients. Okay? And like I said, if you're buying assignments or if you're looking at buying assignments, there are specific builders that you kind of want to focus on because you're going to improve your profit. I now use this as part of my profit strategy. When I'm buying new construction, I'm looking for a couple of things. I'm looking for the builder who I know 9 times out of 10 is going to screw up, right? Because I can buy the property. I don't want to close on it anytime soon anyways. I want it to continue to appreciate. And if I know it's going to take an extra 2 years because the builder's going to screw up and it's going to appreciate for a couple more years, I don't have to close on it for a while, right? But I also know I've just built an extra $7,500 in profit into it for myself. All right, so not only am I going to get, in Hamilton, I'm going to get like a 3.5% profit appreciation. I'm going to get that appreciation as I go along, but I'm also going to get $7,500 extra, tax-free money. Same with if I'm doing assignments. I'm going to buy an assignment in a building where I know that everybody's entitled to a claim already. Why wouldn't I? It's an extra $7,500. Okay? So like I said, I now put that in as part of my how I purchase plan. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? You're going to have to leave.
This is the third
Do you have insurance on this building?
This is the third time.
Do you have the big bus this year?
Any questions at all about the occupancy claim process? Okay, so like I said, $350 million. That's based on what Tarion's predicted. Yes?
That claim is filed with the builder.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, they are. Here's the issue. If I file it with the builder says no.
So carry on.
What happens next? Right? So what if anyone ever files it on their own, the first thing they do is they send it off to the builder. And the builder just ignores it and waits and lets the time tick away. And then you finally phone them up about 6 months later and go, excuse me, sir, do you think I'm in? And they say, no, you're not entitled, right? And now you've got 3 or 4 months left, and now you go, what do I do now? The best way to do is go straight to Tarion. I follow that to Tarion. You can do this yourself. I will tell you that nobody does. Okay? Yes?
And does that have to happen in that specific time, that period have 3 months, 6 months, stuff like that, or can you just file any time in period?
It has to be filed within a year of getting occupancy.
But any time within a year.
Anytime within a year. The faster, the more likely you're going to get paid without question. Okay? And like I said, most people won't. The other problem that you have with a lot of people, again, I'll go back to bond as an example. 672 units. And they all got, on average, 8 letters. Okay? What do you think the odds are that any one person kept those 8 letters? Pretty slim, right? If they don't have the letters, they may not be able to prove where the mistake was. Right? If they don't have that one letter that says, oops, which means you really need 3 letters, the letter before that established a date, the letter after that was less than 90 days, and the next letter, okay? If they don't have those, they really can't do anything. They can just send in a claim and say, I think I'm entitled because my neighbor goes entitled. Can I get some money? And the builder says no. Right? Which kind of makes us a really attractive figure, right? Because I'll do 150 claims in that building, and you'll have a letter, and you won't have anything, and you have 2 letters, and you think you have a letter, but you'll never send it to me, a letter. And all the letters say dear purchaser, so they're all the same letters to everybody. So the next thing you know, I've got all 10 letters. Now I don't need anybody's letters. Now all I need is your date that you took occupancy.
But isn't it only the firm date that matters?
No. Anytime they screw up that 90 days. If they miss the firm date, that matters.
The firm date, but they can send you 10 letters on tentative date.
Yeah, okay, so let's go back to Vaughn, for example. So they had this first tentative date, and I don't know if you guys can read this. Builder on 90 days notice may change the tentative date as often as they like, provided they give 90 days notice. If they give 89 days notice, this is now the firm date. Does that make sense? So their first letter that they sent out, they gave 89 days notice. That's the firm date. They continue to move it along and along and along, not realizing that they screwed up. And then they come to their actual occupancy date. Okay? When that occupancy date comes along, and you finally get occupancy, I go, okay, that's great, but they screwed up back here. So, Mr. Builder, you owe these guys 386 days worth of delays to a maximum of $7,500. So whenever they screw up along this process, that's why I said the more letters they send, the more likely that they're going to mess it up
On business days.
on business days. Now, it's not 90 business days. The day they send it has to be a business day, and the day they move it to has to be a business day. Okay? And they screw up. I have yet to see a builder do it right. Okay? Ever. And I've looked at a lot of these. They're all screwing it up because no one ever paid attention before. Yes?
Could they not put like a date on the letter that says like 100 days out from the date, but they don't mail it to you till 80 days prior? Like they could easily do that.
They could.
Then you have no way of proving.
Yeah. Then I say, can you tell me when you've received it? And somebody of those 672 clients is going to have kept a copy of the actual receipt that they received. Somebody will. And as long as I caught one person doing it, I know that there's no way that they sent out 671 10 days early and 672 went out late.
They come by mail.
Yeah. But if it comes by mail, that means it's 94 days. Don't say it. Trust me, it's just such an administrative nightmare
And
that
how
they
do you
get screwed.
prove date of receipt for the mail?
Because somebody will actually write down received on.
Oh, that's all you're basing it on?
Yep.
Somebody's handwritten scroll?
That's out.
I think if you also keep the envelope, if there is a date. that-
There's a date stamp on it. Or
Yeah, that doesn't mean,
it says,
that just means the date arrived.
or it says sent by mail.
Yeah.
If it says sent by mail, I automatically add 3 days plus a day.
Right.
Now is it 91 days? Is it 90 days? Yeah, so I'm subtracting those off, so it happens. And here's why. Before we started doing this, like I said, Marion was processing about 24 to 25 claims on average a year. How many times do you think the builder got burned by this? Most of them never got burned by this. So they didn't care about the rules. They don't even pay attention to the rules. Now, they should have been burned about this all the time, but nobody ever did. Now, all of a sudden, they're starting to get burned. And now they're kind of going, whoa, hang on a second. When did these rules come into play? Well, these rules have been in place since 2008. But no one's been paying attention all along. Yes?
How many times can the builder change that firm date?
Once.
They can't. You have a firm date. You can't change it unless you get amendment.
Tentative date, I thought they were allowed 3 change.
I hear that a lot.
Yes.
There's no amount. They can change it as many or as little times as they like. Okay? But the important thing is, did they give notice? Now, the smart builders will give a year's notice the first time, or 2 years' notice, right? As soon as they get everybody signed up, they go, ha, great, you thought you were getting a unit this month? You're not. You know what I mean? You know, they sign them all up at the VIP night, say, yeah, everyone's gonna get occupancy in June 2019, no problems. 10 days past the VIP night goes and everybody's locked in. We're gonna move that tentative date to June 2021. And give themselves some time, right? Give themselves some breathing room, right? But they weren't doing that before because they didn't know that they ever could hit this. Yes?
If the notice goes out less than 90 days, it automatically becomes a firm date.
Correct.
And they cannot change that firm date. But they cannot change it.
They keep on changing it, but they can't, right? They keep on changing it as much as they like. We can't make them give occupancy early, right? It is what it is. So if they screwed it up here, right, December 1st, 2017 is when they screwed it up, and they don't give it to your client until June of 2018, that's when they get occupancy, then in June of 2018 is when we file the claim. Well, we count back to December 1st, 2017 when they screwed up. Well, now all of a sudden you're looking at what, 180 days? Your client's entitled to $7,500. Okay, same example. Screwed it up December 1st. Occupancy actually happens in June, but the original purchaser doesn't close on it. They assign it in May, right? So they assign it to someone else in May. That person who took the assignment in May is now entitled to $7,500.
Only the original purchaser.
Whoever takes ownership of it, whoever takes it on occupancy, right? So if I buy the assignment and on June 1st, it's under my name, even though I have to close on it, it's under my name, the assignment now. I'm entitled to that $7,500. Okay? And like I said, big issues no one's claiming. What we'll see in Toronto, here's how bad it is. In the Toronto market, including condos, freeholds, townhomes, all of that, the estimate is 92,000 units a year. Up to $7,500. The average claim is $6,200 right now. Okay? Nobody else works with this program but us. And we did 300 claims last year.
What are your fees?
Way too much. We charge $8,000.
Okay.
We charge a percentage. Okay, so we charge a percentage based on success. So if we don't get them anything, we don't charge them anything. On average, we're going to charge 20%. Okay, and we'll fight it right through the court. Does that make sense?
20% you said?
Yeah, that's how much is being missed. And just think about that. 92,000 on the average $6,000. Let's call it $5,000. That's $450 million that's not in the investment market right now because no one's asking for it. That's got to increase your sales in Toronto. Right? If you could put that $450 million back into the hands of investors, that's got to increase your commissions. Right? And yes, we pay referral fees for these. Okay? Let's talk about HST. The first and most important thing when we talk about HST is determining what is new and what is resale. Most people, when I talk to them, especially realtors, they talk about new as being something that was built from scratch, didn't exist before, there's a hole, now there's a building. That's new. Okay? That's not what CRA says. What CRA says is anything that was a hole and now is there, that's new for sure. But anything that's been substantially renovated is new. Okay, so if I take a house and I bring it back to the drywall, to the studs, and I rebuild the inside of the house and I don't touch the exterior, that's new. That make sense? It's new.
From what day? From what year?
It doesn't matter how old that property is. That property could have been built in 1962.
Yeah.
Or 1712. And we take it back to the studs and we put drywall up and we rehash it and it's new.
You're not touching the exterior?
We're not touching the exterior.
Really?
That's new. If we touch the exterior, it's still new. If we take it down to the foundation, it's still new.
Additions?
If we do an addition and we touch the rest of it, it's new. Okay? So that's important to understand, because when we talk about HST and HST rules, we're talking about anything that's considered new. So when you're in Toronto and somebody buys or has a 350 square foot home, fully detached home, on an oversized 50 by 20 lot, and they decide to rebuild that house and make it 3.5 stories, 4 bedrooms, 7,000 square foot. Of course, never happens in Toronto, but they decide to do this. That's new construction. Okay? When they put it on the market as a resale product, whoever buys it is entitled to get HST back. Whoever sells it is entitled to pay HST. Yes?
If the owner has been living in that house, and then they sell it, it's in the same house, with the same address and everything, are they still,
Okay, so important question there. If I do the renovation and I move back into it and I live in it, it's resale. If I've owned the house for 50 years and I want to sell it, so I renovate the snot out of it and then I put it on the market, it's new. Okay? So, yes?
Does it apply to condos?
Yeah.
Like some of the old condos, they renovated early and some never built.
Yeah.
Does it apply to that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
And this is important to understand, especially from a realtor's perspective, because how you position this makes a big difference, right? If I take a condo as an example, I take an old condo on DuPont, right? And the old condo, some of them were actually fairly significant in size. You got 1,200 square feet. And I replaced the floors, I put a new kitchen, put a new bathroom. That's now new construction. Because what can you change on a condo?
Using new concept.
What can you change? You don't want to change stuff in the interior. You can't change the plumbing, really. You can't change the windows of the doors. You're not allowed, right? There's only so much you can change on a condo. It's called the 90% rule. So if I change 90% of what's available for me to change, it's now new construction, okay? So now let's just imagine you come along and you list this property for your client. It was originally a $700,000 property. They just put $60,000 into this renovation to make it look nice so they could sell it. You're going to put it on the market for $900,000. Okay? Whoever buys that property has just bought new construction is entitled to a rebate of $24,000.
Does that take care of the whole living? Yeah.
Isn't that great? Whoever sells that property owes about $120,000 in HST.
that's crazy.
Are they implementing?
Yeah? Now the issue is, how does Revenue Canada catch it? Right? So you want to be very aware of that as a realtor. If you're the listing agent, you want to make sure you understand those HST rules. Because you can imagine, if you screwed that up and all of a sudden this client owns $120,000, they're not going to like you. Right? Your brand is going to be negatively affected for a long time if they don't try and sue you. Okay. Fortunately, you guys are covered because we blame it all on the lawyers. Right? But the lawyers aren't paying attention to it either. Does that make sense?
But that 90%.
Yeah.
Who's gonna calculate interim market evaluation?
Well, it depends. If I renovate the house and I want to get the money, and we'll talk about the renovation program, and I want to get the money, I'm going to calculate 90%. If you flip the house, you make it look nice, and you put it on the market and you sell it, Revenue Canada is going to calculate the 90%.
All they do is they look at what it sold for in March and what it sold for in December.
They do.
Pretty easy.
They also look for those wonderful terms that realtors are so happy to put in.
Newly
Newly renovated, fully renovated, top to bottom, brand new, never lived in, all of those wonderful things. And Revenue Canada, they have the internet. You guys know that, right? So they search that and they go, look at that, it's brand new, never lived in. And can you imagine? So they've got to make a decision whether this is resale or new. But if I tell you it's resale, I don't get any money. But if I tell you it's new, you owe me 120 grand. What do you think they're going to lean towards? Oh yeah, all day. Now you prove to me that it's not new.
So is it 9 months you have to live in it or 12 months?
Actually, there's no. Well, let's talk about the HST and we'll talk a little bit more about the dynamics there. Okay?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
What do you need as a buyer's agent? What do you need to show it's renovated? Do you need papers?
We're gonna talk about that in a second. Okay, so let's talk about HST from what most of us think of as new construction, right? Building never existed, now it exists. Okay. In Toronto, in 2015, Revenue Canada collected $3.1 billion as a result of that type of construction in HST. $3.1 billion. Does that make sense? That's a few extra zeros, but $3.1 billion. Of that $3.1 billion, $3.1 billion was supposed to go back to the investors and the purchasers. 100% of it was supposed to go back. Okay? In 2015, they gave out $640 million. About 2.5 was never applied for. That's $1 billion. What's that?
Where does that 2.5 billion go?
They get to keep it. After 2 years, it's theirs. Isn't this great? That's what's supposed to happen. Most people never apply.
But the rebate is not the equal amount as the HST that the
Right, we're just talking about the rebatable amount, the 3.1. Okay, the total amount that they collected was close to 6 billion.
Oh,
But they get to keep a portion, right? Okay. So there's 2 programs. Of these 2 programs, 100% of all purchases should fit into one of these programs. 100% of that $3.1 billion should come from one of these 2 programs. Okay? Most people will apply for the new home rebate. The new home rebate is for people who bought the property and it's going to make it their primary residence. It's not about changing your mail address. This is I moved in there and I lived there full time. Okay? This is where I live 100% of the time. That's where most claims go. About 75% of those get reversed. About 75% of those get denied by Revenue Canada because people said they were living there and they don't. Okay? We have clients who will call us up, they've got 14 units in the same building and they live in all of them. And they file that way. Okay? And the reason why most claims go into this program is purely money. About 24 hours before you close, the lawyer's going to call you up and say, I need to understand what you're going to use the property for. Now, before you answer, if you tell me this is going to be your primary residence, then I'll get you to sign a waiver on closing and you won't have to pay any additional HST. However, if you tell me it's a rental property, I need you to bring me a check for $27,000. Right? If your first question is, okay, I got to bring you a check for $27,000, can I get it back? I don't believe so. What do you think everybody says? No, I live there. Yeah, I'm always going to live there. That's 200 square feet. All 7 of us are going to live there. I don't care, right? That's my house. Revenue Canada does 100% review of these claims. I like to say 75% of them get reversed. Half of them get reversed, even though the person does truly live there. And they get reversed because people don't do what Revenue Canada says you should do if it's going to be your primary residence. If it's your primary residence in Ontario, the first thing you should do when you buy a property is you put a Ma Bell telephone line in. You know what that is, right? No. You have to install a phone line. If you don't, you probably don't live there. You should order a magazine subscription because everybody gets a magazine subscription. Actually recommend TV Guide. I'm sure you don't know what that is either.
I just can't, like, why would anyone do this?
Because if you don't, you're going to end up paying back that $27,000 that you got as a credit on closing. Nobody does that, right? The vast majority of people who are buying condos or smaller properties that are actually living in them are younger people. I don't care if my mail goes to mom and dad. They may pay it. I don't need a cell phone or a mobile telephone. I got a cell phone. I don't need cable. I can cast everything. I don't even need internet. I've got an unlimited data plan. People are living and they've got absolutely no proof that they live there at all, right?
A driver's license and insurance doesn't matter, but is not enough.
No. Insurance, if you get content insurance, it helps. But most people who are especially newer buyers, they're not getting content insurance. They don't have any content. Right, the most expensive thing I have is my couch from IKEA. It was $295. You want me to insure that? Right? They never go home anyway, so like, how much furniture can they have? The house is 225 square feet. So they're not doing any of that, so they're all getting denied. Okay? And of course, then there's the people who mislead the truth a little bit. Oh, no, I live in them. They're mine, not to worry. On the other side, that represents about 5 to 10% of all claims currently. This is where 95% of all claims should be. This is for people who bought the property and are going to use it as a rental property. Okay? In order to qualify for this, I need a 12-month lease or longer. That's it. It's audited when I send in the paperwork. Okay? The average client will get their money back in 45 days.
From occupancy or closing?
It doesn't matter. Well, if the builder's going to allow you to rent your unit out during occupancy, rent it out. Okay? Yep.
Could it be 2 like 6-month leases?
Nope.
No, it has to be 1.
1-year lease. It can't be property management agreements with somebody who's going to rent it out on a month-to-month basis. Doesn't work. It can't be a month-to-month basis that lasted for 12 months or longer. Doesn't work. It has to be a 12-month lease rule. Yes.
So you pay that 27 at closing, and then you get it back.
If you apply, you're going to get the whole $27,000 back. Okay. Now, we just use 27. That's just an arbitrary
Is that
number.
the maximum?
The maximum is around 28. According to government math, it's 30,300, but it can't happen. It's around 28. What you want to think is about 8%. If somebody buys something for 200,000, they're going to pay about 16,000 on closing. How much are they going to get back for that 16,000? 16,000. If they buy a property for $1 million, they're going to pay $24,000 on closing. They're going to get $24,000 back. Okay, if they buy a property for $300,000 or $350,000, they're going to pay $27,000. Government back, don't ask. They're going to get $27,000 back. Okay, only if they apply. Okay, so here's the first problem why people don't file. The number one reason why people don't file for this, even though, like I say, $3.1 billion is supposed to go back, is on their statement of adjustments from the lawyer, it says, purchaser is not qualified for the HST rebate. Now what they're talking about is the purchaser does not qualify for this program. They don't care if you qualify for that program. But if you get a letter from the lawyer that says you don't qualify for the HST rebate, what makes you think that you're entitled to get it back? Absolutely nothing. So nobody applies. Everybody who buys is entitled to get it back. And just to answer another question for you. It doesn't matter whether it's a company, a holdco, an international buyer, a partnership, 7 people went out of a place together, they're all entitled to get it back. 4 international buyers in Toronto last year. That's all that apply. They will send the checks anywhere in the world. Yes?
How do you apply for that one?
Okay. You can only talk to me. It's just paperwork. Okay, it's just paperwork. Anybody can do it. Most people won't do it because they can't get around to it. They need to have a copy of their 1-year lease. Now, if let's say you've got a client who only wants to lease the unit for 6 months, remember I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, sign a 1-year lease and give them an amendment. Change it to 6 months afterwards. Just when we submit the application, we'll submit the 1-year lease. Right? That's not a document that Revenue Canada has access to. If they sign it for a year, and you want to put a clause in the back that says anytime after 3 months you can vacate the property, I won't chase you, it's still a 1-year lease. If you sign a 1-year lease and they move in and they live there for a month and a half and they vacate the property, you still got a 1-year lease. You're still entitled to get your money back. Okay? After you've got the money back, you can do whatever you want with that property. You can make it a month-to-month, make it an Airbnb if you like.
A
Yes.
question about the Airbnb. I lease a property for somebody, it's a condo, and it's my property.
Yep.
And he used it for Airbnb. Am I entitled for my HST?
Okay, so the question there is, it's a fairly dynamic question. So you leased the property to Bob?
Yeah.
Right?
And Bob is a nice guy.
Bob's a nice guy, even though we don't like Bob, but Bob went out and used it as an Airbnb. So the question is, does he have a 1-year lease?
Yes.
Yes.
That's all that matters. So you apply, you get your money back.
No, because you said you cannot lease it to a property management or whatever.
Right.
So,
If I lease it to Bob and Bob happens to be a commercial entity, I'm not entitled to get it back because a commercial entity cannot live there. Okay? But if I lease it to an individual, I'm fine. Right? If that individual doesn't move in or uses it for something else, I still believed I was leasing it out to an individual, I'm entitled. And there's no way for Rugby Canada to find out anywhere different anyways. Does that make sense? Okay. So we talked about that as far as why they're going after them. One of the things that you really want to be aware of as a realtor is the people that are flipping the properties. Okay, I bought this property, I closed on the property, now I want to resell the property. If nobody moved in, it's new construction. Okay, so think about that for a second. I bought it for $300,000 back in 2012. It's now worth $500,000 today. Okay, so your client says, well, I just want to sell it. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sell it. When they put it on the market, they're selling a new construction property. So they now owe $65,000 in HST when they sell that property. That's going to eat right into the profit margin, right? And of course, Revenue Canada is going to come after them for capital gains. Does that make sense? Now, how do they avoid that? Well, the best way to avoid that is a lease to own. I lease it out to Bob, knowing full well that Bob wants to buy the property. And I say, Bob, here's what I need you to do. I need you to sign this 1-year lease with me, and I need you to sign this purchase and sale agreement. Purchase and sale agreement, we're going to put a clause in there that's going to allow us to move the date forward, right? Now I've got my 1-year lease. I send it off. I get my $30,000 or whatever money HST back. The next day, I sell it to Bob. You've liquidated the property. Your client hasn't lost all that HST, and they don't have to pay HST because now they're selling to use the property as someone moved in. That make sense?
So before that 1 year, so
Yeah, don't sell it for that 1 year unless you're really thinking. Does that make sense? Okay, now let's quickly talk about the renovation rebate. That's that 90% rule. The renovation rebate is up to $30,300. Okay, that's technically what it's entitled to. Nobody in Ontario gets $30,300. Okay, the maximum you should be thinking is $24,000. Anybody who renovates a house, top to bottom, 90% or more, and it's up to you to determine what 90% or more is, you can claim a rebate of up to $24,000. So if you've got a client who's going out looking for a resale and they buy a beautiful, bungalow, and you know full well that they're going to gut it, give them my card, tell them that they're going to be entitled to up to $24,000 when they're done. Right? Why not? They have no idea. Okay? So in order to do that, you do your renovation, and then you apply. It takes about 90 days, and they're going to get this check. Okay? If they buy vacant land and they build, they're entitled to more. Okay? But no one's going to get more than, say, $24,000 on here. Okay? Because once the value goes above $450,000, they lose the federal rebate. You can't renovate anything in Ontario under $450,000. Right? Anybody's house would be worth more than $450,000 in Ontario. Even in Hamilton, they're worth more than $450,000. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you're renovating your own house for you to live in, you're entitled to get a rebate of up to $24,000. If, however, you renovate a house and then sell it, it's now new construction. Right? So going back to that condo. I've got this condo where I buy this condo and I renovate the 9 out of it, put it on the market, and I sell it. Doesn't matter how long I owned it for. It's now new construction. And when I sell it, it's subject to HST, 13%. Okay. The purchaser is entitled to make a claim. The purchaser will trigger Revenue Canada to look at the sale. And that's the important thing. So if you've got a client who's a purchaser who purchased this and went, oh, that looks like a new construction property, let's apply. Why wouldn't you? Your client's gonna get $24,000, right? They're gonna love you. So they apply, they get $24,000. The first thing they do is go back to the original seller and go, hang on a second now, you owe us some money. They're effectively paying commission to the buyer, right? Because they brought it to their attention. Okay? Now, how do you avoid that? Well, there's a couple things you can do. If you represent the seller, HST is not included in the transaction. Toggle that little button. If you say HST is not included in the transaction, nobody can apply for it. Okay? And the great thing is, when you toggle that little button that says HST is not included in that transaction, the realtor on the other side has no idea. They're looking at you like you're from Mars. They think you're an idiot. Because in their minds, it's a resale property, of course HST is not included in the transaction, right? They don't know that that's probably a brand new property from Revit Canada's perspective. So if you're representing the seller, always HST is not included in the transaction. I don't care if you're not sure if it's new construction. Okay, if it smells like new paint, HST is not included in the transaction.
But doesn't that mean that whoever is purchasing that, in addition to the price, they have to pay HST on top of that?
If it's subject to HST. Okay, so here's why we do this. So if I sell the property and I say HST is not included in this transaction, okay, how does Revit Canada find out that this might have been a taxable situation? Only if the purchaser makes a claim. Now, why would the purchaser make a claim if all of a sudden they're going to have to pay HST? So I bought this $1 million house, but I can claim $24,000 because I think it's brand new construction. But when I claim the $24,000, I have to pay $130 again. Not the best math. And if they do that, let them do it because they're obviously an idiot. Okay? So it's not the best math, so no purchaser is going to do that.
When they claim, the deal is already closed, and the CRA is going to come after the seller, not the purchaser. I don't know how am I going
Well, they're going to come after the seller, but before they come after the seller, what are they going to come after? They're going to come after the purchase and sale agreement, the legal document that orchestrates this. And when that legal document says that HST is not included in the transaction, who pays the HST? The buyer.
The seller, the CRA doesn't care that we didn't get the money from the
Right, they're
seller.
going to go to the seller and say, well, you need to give us $130,000, right? Where does the seller go? He goes to the buyer, right? And what ends up happening is it's a lawsuit, right? But, so no one's going to do it. What you do is by saying HST is not included, the purchaser is never going to apply. By saying HST is included, you've given them an opportunity. So I'll give you a good example. Like I said, I became a very smart investor because I realized that you can't make money buying construction properties, right? But when a building goes into occupancy, I watch it. And when it registers, I get excited. Okay? Down where we are in Burlington, there's a building called the Link Condos. Okay? Link Condos got registered about a month ago. Middle of December, it got registered. Okay? 2 days later, 46 units were on the market. Isn't that great? Guess what they all said? Brand new, never lived in. Isn't that wonderful? So now I go and I want to buy one of those. Right? So now I go and I buy your condo that you bought for $264,000, and you put it on the market now for $300,000, right? Because Burlington doesn't appreciate that much. So you put it on the market for $300,000, and I buy it. And I put my 10% down, so I put 30 grand down. And then once I get that property, I apply for the HST rebate. Okay? And I get that HST rebate, which is $24,000. So now I got $6 grand into this unit. I've got about 2% into this property that I'm renting out. I'm actually making money now, right? Because I just put $24,000 cash into my pocket, tax-free money. I basically have nothing in the property. And you can do this all day, right? Or you can do the other and you can buy their assignment and take their $7,500. Yes?
That's only if the purchase agreement says you pay the HST.
That the HST is included in the purchase, so the seller is looking after the HST. But here's the great thing about it. 46 units go on the market, okay? I only have to find one realtor who's stupid enough not to have toggled off that button. Right? Well, almost all the realtors think it's resale. You own it, you want to sell it, we're reselling it. That's what we're doing, we're reselling a property. They don't realize that that's new construction. So now I go in and I look at these 46 units, I don't care where they are. I don't care what they look like. All I care about is, am I going to get the 24,000 bucks? And I go from unit to unit, hey, you want to sell me your unit? Great. Can I say, yeah, we're going to put HSTs included. Oh, okay, great, fine. That's the deal for me. I'm going to put my $30,000 back, get 24 grand back today. I'm going to go buy another unit now. Heck, I might buy 5 units with that same $30,000 deposit. Right? There are really smart investors doing that today, and they're having a great time. And if the realtor happens to say, well, no, HST is not included, you're not going to catch my client on that. Okay, I'll just go to the next unit. There's 46 units. I don't care which one I buy.
They all say HST included.
They don't say HST is included, right? Or, this is the other thing. I just say to my realtor, just tell him to say HST is included. Just mark that in there. They don't know any better. To put the icing on the cake, I actually go a step further and I say, can you get the client to stipulate that no one's ever lived in the property? I know it says in the listing that no one's ever lived in the property, but my wife is Amy, and she'd hate to use a shower that someone else has used. So if you could just stipulate on that purchase and sale agreement that no one's ever lived in that property, that would be wonderful. Now they've told Revenue Canada that no one's ever lived in the property. I'm guaranteeing myself some money. Okay, so now I'm buying the unit. In many cases, for less money than if I bought it on VIP night. I didn't have to wait 5 years for it to be built. I'm buying it today. I'm putting 2% down. And yes, you can do that all day. Probably not the best tool to do it yourself all the time. Say, I'm a realtor, I know better. Because they might catch you. But there's nothing wrong with doing it. You can do that all day. I usually do about 2 or 3 of those a year.
What happens on assignments between occupancy?
What's that?
Between occupancy.
Okay, so if you're buying an assignment, right, then what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the assignments where I know I'm going to get that 7,500 bucks, right? Because if I'm buying an assignment, I have to pay the HST, but I'm going to get it back, so I'm not going to get that HST benefit. So now I want to make sure I get the $7,500 benefit, right? So I'm looking for those deals now. Anything that can increase my profit a little bit, right? So now I buy that unit for $300,000, I get my $24,000 back, and then I go and I find somebody like a teacher who wants to lease the unit for 3 months. And I say, great, I'm going to sign this 1-year lease with you. I'm going to give you an out clause. After 3 months, you can run. I don't care. And then I sell it. Now I'm selling a resale property. Because the secret is you've got 1 of 2 options. Either you toggle that HST button, or you have someone live in the property. Okay, so answer the question I know you want to ask. So I renovate the 9s out of my house. My goal is to sell it. It was a $300,000 house. I put $80,000 into it. I'm going to sell it for $2 million. Right? So all I do is I renovate the house, I move back into it, and I sell the house. Now it's a resale property. There's no rule that says how long I have to live there. I just have to move back into the house. Okay? Some people will just stage the 9s out of it as it makes it a little harder to prove. Right? But if you've got clients that are buying houses that are obviously been renovated, that's what you want to look for. One of the things we see a lot in Toronto right now is you guys do everything differently out here. When you buy a house that's not new construction, it's just a really well-maintained house. It used to be a 1-bedroom house. It's now a 7-bedroom house. It's just really well-maintained. The seller will give you a 3-year warranty on the house. Have you guys come across this? Why the heck would a seller give a warranty on a home? Do they normally give warranties on resale properties? No. So if they're giving a warranty on a home, what is it? It's new construction, right? So if your client is buying a house with a warranty on it, they're entitled to an HST rebate. They probably also can go after the builder for not having registered it with Ontario. But who cares? There's no benefit to your client for doing that. But they are entitled to the HST rebate. So if you see that warranty attached to it, you've got to start asking questions. You know, now your client can go out and buy this place that they love. And by the way, you're going to get a check for $24,000, which is a really nice property. Right? So you should be looking for those sort of things, or looking for them for yourself. Does that make sense?
I'm still stuck on, how can you claim 24,000 when you didn't pay the HST to begin with?
Anybody want to answer that question, or shall I?
The person who claims it is,
The builder claimed it.
no.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a new purchase.
Okay, so
I'm buying it,
I have a family home that I've owned for
no,
100,
it's not condos.
okay, 180 years first. And I renovate this out of the place and I put
No,
it
I
in market.
understand
Okay.
renos.
Okay.
I'm talking about, sorry, I'm going back a little bit.
Okay.
That's all I was thinking about. So, new construction.
Yep.
You buy it,
And I sell it to you?
you get occupancy.
Yep.
You don't live in it, like you said, the day after, it's on MLS.
Mhm.
So it says, new construction, never lived in, all the good hockey that I want.
Mhm.
So I buy it,
Mhm.
it says HST included
Okay,
in my purchase agreement.
okay.
And I turn around and claim either the rental rebate or the new home rebate.
I already understood you could claim either, right? Okay. And why are you entitled to that, you're asking?
I didn't pay HST, so how am I?
But legally, you did.
We didn't pay HST.
Legally, you did.
Rebate.
Okay.
For purchase price.
Let's just, we'll walk through a scenario, okay? This is our builder,
Yeah,
okay? The builder sells to him.
Right.
Okay? There's an HST thing going on,
that the
right?
builder paid.
Right. Now, he's gonna sell to me. No one's ever lived in the property.
And
Okay.
he's never paid HST.
He did. He paid it on closing.
Well, that's where I'm getting unhinged. So the builder.
Okay,
didn't
there's a
pay
lot to this.
HST.
I would use your pen, but I don't think it's, there's a marker over there. Oh, look at that. Okay. So we buy a house for $200,000, okay? The original purchaser is going to pay $16,000 in HST, okay, in closing. So he's gonna pay $16,000 in HST in closing. And he's gonna pay it because he's not living there, right?
No,
No.
he
didn't.
claimed he was going
Okay,
to live
so
there,
let's
so
say
the
he-
HST was included.
Let's say he claims he was living there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the HST is included, but he didn't pay the HST.
Right,
He puts it on the market tomorrow. Is he living there? Okay, so is he entitled to that 16,000?
No.
No, so he no longer is entitled to that Revenue Canada wants it back, because he didn't do what he was supposed to do.
right.
Okay, now, he puts it on the market because he's a smart guy and he wants to sell it for 300,000. Okay, HST included, right? Because nobody followed the button. How much is he really selling that property for?
285, maybe.
Less than that. 13% of 300 is $39,000. So he's actually selling it for 261K. That's how much he's going to get. Revenue Canada wants 39,000. He doesn't know that yet. Revenue Canada is entitled to $39,000. Right? Is that very clear so far? Now I come by and I buy this property for 300K. I'm entitled to make a claim based on all of this HST paid and all of this HST paid. Okay, so originally he was entitled to 16 grand, right? But now there's 50 some odd thousand dollars worth of HST. I'm entitled to 2/3 to a maximum of $30,000. I'm probably gonna get a check for around 27K personally. I'm gonna apply for that. Me, the end purchaser. Right? The 300K purchaser is going to get that. Because I'm the first person who's going to use it for residential purposes, whether it's my private residence or I'm going to rent it out. I'm entitled to make this claim for $27,000.
So the original seller has to pay 16 plus 39.
Uh-huh.
$45,000 after that.
What's actually 54?
55.
55,000.
No.
Yeah.
The 16 plus the 39. Isn't that great?
And the purchaser?
I believe that just they have to pay, what's that? First purchase, just $24,000.
Or I'll walk it through for you. So they're going to pay $54,000. 55,000. They get to claim back any HST that they paid in order to sell the property. So HST and commissions, HST and
HST is not exactly 50%.
Yeah. This is what's going to happen.
Construction.
So this guy here, this seller is going to net, he's gonna net around $244,000. That's legal fees and commissions. The realtor's gonna get some money out of this, right? Because they did a good job explaining to him about his HST implications. So, you know, this guy's probably gonna get $230,000. Right now, he's made about 30 grand on the purchase. He's pretty happy. He's waited 4 years to pay $30,000. And then Revenue Canada's gonna come by and talk about capital gains, right? If he's lucky, they're only gonna take 25% of his profit. More than likely, because of what he did and how he did it, they're gonna ask for full tax.
Penalty and.
Okay, but I understand all that. I'm still trying to get to,
Why? Okay, so why is this happening? Because when I sold the property, it says HST's included. When I go to the brick and I buy no HST, HST free day, or we pay the taxes, somebody still has to pay it. Revenue Canada still wants their money. They don't care how the deal is structured. They
okay,
don't care if you pay it or he pays it. They just want their money.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yep, now I get it.
And the purchaser will receive the rebate for.
If the purchaser applies, the purchaser's gonna get that rebate. And if the purchaser's me, he's gonna be happy.
But not like the 5.
He's not gonna get 55, but he's gonna get a percentage of the two. Probably around 27, 28,000 based on those numbers. Does that make sense? Yep.
Quick question on the flipping.
Yes.
Let's say you're the builder, he bought a property from you.
Yep.
And I assign it from him. So there is a difference of what, there was $150,000 difference.
Okay, so now we're talking flipping through an assignment, okay? And this is an important one to realize too.
But it's not about the rebate, I'm talking about the.
Okay, so we're gonna understand how this whole assignment thing works. With an assignment, the end purchaser is going to pay HST and get HST back. We're all clear about that, right? Now the question is, what happens to the person selling the assignment? Okay, everybody talks about HST when they do the assignment, but they don't really understand what they're talking about. Okay? In this situation, I bought it for $200,000. I put 20% down, so I put 40 grand down, right? I'm gonna sell it for $260,000 because math is easier for me that way. So I'm gonna assign it for $260,000. So the seller of the assignment is going to get $60,000 plus their deposit back, right? Okay, so 100 grand. The $40,000 deposit is subject to HST at 13%. Okay, because nobody can give you your deposit back but the builder. So that $40,000 that you get back, you have to pay 13% on. Okay, so about $7,000 or something, $6,000. Okay, the $16,000 is subject to HST at 13%. Right? So the seller of the assignment now owes HST $100,000. They owe $13,000 in HST. Okay? So now when the assignment all processes, they're going to pay $13,000 for Revenue Canada. Their profit in this case is around $47,000, right?
Okay, so here's my question about
Yep.
the HST. Who has to pay that HST? Is it the assignor or the assignee?
The person who sold the assignment has to pay that additional HST.
The builder charged it to me
Okay? Well, we can fix
after
that.
on a closing.
We can fix that. Okay? So the person who sold the assignment has to pay the additional HST, unless somebody was really, really smart and they get to see it. So they have to pay that HST. Now the purchaser of the assignment is entitled to the original HST back because they're going to pay HST on the original purchase price. So in this case, $16,000, right? So they're entitled to that $16,000 back. That's what they'll pay on closing, is 16 grand. Okay, but they also get a percentage of this additional HST, the extra $13,000 in HST created. I know, we're just my math, right?
So the original person cannot get that, which is that.
They didn't close on the property, they don't get that 16,000. So they're gonna pay the 16,000 on closing for that. Plus the assignment itself created an extra $13,000 in HST. You're entitled to 2/3 of that. So in a situation like that, you're gonna get around $23,000 back, but you only paid 16 on closing. And if you were really smart, you might also get the occupancy claim for another $7,500.
Well, there was no,
occupancy come, if it's delayed occupancy.
well, there was no delayed occupancy, but what the builder did, because he didn't care, like, you know, he wants.
Builders don't care, they just want the money.
He wants the HST, so he charged me the HST, and the other guy is loose. Now we're going after the other guy.
Yep. Okay, so he charged you the HST. You
On
get
the
that,
difference.
you get that back. the HST charged you, right? The difference, that's something, it becomes now a contract thing, right? It's your lawyers after their lawyers. But who's supposed to pay it is the person who assigned the unit to you. Does that make sense?
Do you do that? Like,
Yeah. Have I charge you way more? Does that make sense? So we're good with that? Okay. One of the things I want you to make sure that you understand is rental guarantees. It's a big issue in Toronto. There's a lot of builders now that are offering rental guarantees. What a rental guarantee is, just so we all know, is I'm going to sell you this property. I'm going to guarantee that you're going to get X number of dollars every month for the next 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, right? It's just a marketing scam by the builders, okay? Rental guarantees are important. If your client buys a property with a rental guarantee and for whatever reason they can't lease that unit out for those first couple of months and they give you the money, you're no longer entitled to get your HST back. Okay? And the reason you're no longer entitled to get your HST back is now the first use of this property was a commercial venture. Right? It wasn't a residential use. So I'm the builder. I can't lease your property on time. I guarantee you $900 in rental income. I'll give you a check for $900. You're going to pay HST in closing, but you're not getting any of it back. Right? So your average client's going to pay in Toronto. The average client's going to pay $24,000 in HST. They're going to get a check from me for $900, and you can't get your $24,000 back. How happy are your clients right now? Right? If they take the money, they no longer get the $24,000 back. So you want to be aware of those rental guarantees. The other problem with the rental guarantees, what if this rental guarantee, you've given them the right to rent the unit any way they like? So as a purchaser's agent, you want to make sure that that rental guarantee very clearly says that you will lease that unit out for a minimum of 12 months or longer. Because what if they just go, you know what, I guaranteed you $900. I can lease this out on a short-term basis and charge $1,200 and keep the extra money. Or it's easier for me to lease this out every 30 days and I'll give you all the money. You're no longer eligible for the HST rebate because you don't have a one-year lease. Right? So now your client, they might be getting a little bit more money up front. One of the biggest culprits for that right now is Dell Rentals. They'll sign all these rental guarantees for you, and then they go out and lease them out for 3 months at a time. Or student rentals. Student rentals, you know, the property comes up, you get occupancy in November. Well, they're not going to lease it from November to November, right? They're going to lease it from November to September. Well, guess what? You're no longer eligible to get your HST back. So you're going to pay $24,000, and you're going to lose it.
so if they make a lease for 1 year, you're entitled for that HST?
Has to get at least 1 year. If you get the 1 year, you're going to get it back. That makes sense?
Even if it's by the corporation?
Even if it's, well, if the corporation leases it to an individual.
Yeah, but this, even if it's still the corporation who leased it for you
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
1 year, so.
Property management agreements are fine. You just want to make sure they're leasing it for 1 year. Yes.
Does this expire? Do I have X amount of days
Yeah.
to act on?
Yeah, you have 2 years from when you close on the property to file. If you do 2 years in a day, too bad. Too bad for you, okay? There is a way to get around it now. You can go after your lawyer and you can fight them through title insurance and say, hey, look, Mr. Lawyer, you didn't properly inform me, so you're going to have to pay me and the title insurance will pay you. And then you find a new lawyer. But there's lots of lawyers out there, so I wouldn't worry about that. Yes?
You might be getting to this, but what if you buy a new construction as a secondary residence?
Okay. I actually had this call just yesterday. The guy and his wife bought a beautiful place up in Blue Mountain, in Collingwood. And they're going to use it as their cottage, for lack of a better word, right? It's a $400,000 property. They're going to pay about $27,000 in HST. And he's trying to figure out, how do I get this back? Unless he leases it or he moves there full time, he's out $27,000. Okay? So of course he did the smart thing that I know I love it when I say that. He said, well, you know what? Our place in Toronto, we're just going to lease that out to someone. We've had it for 20 years. We're going to lease that out to somebody, and we'll go live there for a year so we can get our HST back. Right? So now what you've done, though, is you've gotten rid of your primary home advantage. I've got $1 million property that's appreciating by 10% a year, right? So if all of a sudden I make that a rental property, that 10% a year is capital gains, right? And I've seen this at least 100 times last year, where they've leased their home out so they get their HST back. They're gonna get their $27,000 back. Oh, that's wonderful. But now they've got this capital gains burden. Then when the year's up, they flip it back and they go, okay, well, that's gonna be our rental property. We're gonna use that as our cottage, and then we're gonna move back home. Capital gains is due at that day, right? So I left, it was worth $1 million. I went and lived in wherever for a year. I came back in February of 2017, the market was okay back then, it wasn't growing much, right? Yeah. I come back in February of 2017, all of a sudden my $1 million home is worth $1.4 million. I've got a $400,000 capital gains, and Revenue Canada wants the money today.
Oh.
Right? So if you can cut me a check for $24,000 or $100,000, that would be great. It's not like that $400,000 magically went into their pocket. It's just paper money. But now all of a sudden they have to pay $100,000 to move back into their
What
house.
triggers Revenue Canada to go after that 1 year lapse? And pay,
Do you want to know the honest truth?
Yeah.
Because they can.
so they're monitoring
money.
everything, yeah.
Well, what triggers it, it's like, I told you this guys earlier, they have access to the internet, right? And they have access to this program. I don't know if you guys have heard of Geo Warehouse.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm on Geo Warehouse, and I've got a home in Rosedale. And I've got a little cottage that I'm saying is my new construction project. This is my primary residence up in Collingwood for $300,000. And I'm going to say, this is now a rental property so that I can claim this. As soon as you claim this, first thing they do is look to see if you have another property. And when you say, yes, I have another property, they go, this is going to be fun, right?
Or maybe it's under corporation,
What is,
on the Joe warehouse. It's not under the name of the.
which house is under corporation?
Principal home?
The principal home?
Yeah.
Okay, so the principal home's in their corporation's name. It's all capital gains. The only people who don't have to pay capital gains on the principal residence are individuals. So if you buy a house under a corporation, you pay capital gains. Right? It's just when you change use, the capital gains trigger immediately. Right? So if I buy a house under my corporation's name, it appreciates by 10% a year. They're not going to ask for the money every year. But when I sell it, they're going to ask for all the money. Right? But if I take it as a primary, as a residence, and I switch it into a rental property, I've changed use. Well, at that point, there's no capital gains, right? Because it was worth $1 million. Tomorrow, it's a rental property, it's still worth $1 million. Unless it's in Toronto, it might be worth 1.2, right? But there's not really any appreciation at that point. A year from now, it's appreciating, right? If it didn't appreciate, let's say that they sold it in April of 2017 and the market plummeted, right? And let's say it's worth less. They're not going to say, we owe you money.
Yeah, it's going to depreciate in market.
Right? They're not going to say that. They're just going to say, oh, well, that's too bad. We'll let you change use, right? But if you change use and it appreciates, they want their money today. We see a lot of clients doing that. To try and avoid this HST. And really, what should they do? The best way to avoid that HST is lease the unit out. Okay? And I don't care who you lease it to. I buy a property, my son's 19, I'm leasing it to him. He's going to have a 1-year lease. I don't care if he moves up there. I'll get him a subscription to a magazine, and I'll put in a mobile telephone line. It's going to cost me $50, and I'm going to get my $27,000 back. And he can live in the basement. I don't care. But I'm going to make it look like this is being used as a rental property. Right? When that 1 year is up, then I can use it for whatever I want. That make sense?
Does it have to be paper trail on the checks and cash?
You don't have to have checks being cashed because there's nothing in the law that says you have to charge people to write this company. There's something in mental capabilities that say you should, but there's nothing in the law that says you have to. So I can buy a property and I can lease it out to my mom.
Why do you have to list it? You can live there as a relative and you still get your.
You're right, you're right. But why I would lease it as opposed to just say it's a relative is because if I lease it, it's clean. Okay, if we go back to those two programs, here's the question. If I say it's my primary residence for me or my direct family, so in that case, it could be my mom, anytime over the next year, Revenue Canada can call me and ask for evidence to support that she lives there. Give me the paper trail. Show me the fact that she's paying her bills, that she's ordering pizza to that location, that she's got content insurance and all that stuff, right? Prove it to me. If I lease it, they don't ask for anything except a copy of the lease. Okay, I've got a copy of the lease. I don't have to show proof of payment. I don't even have to show that she moved in. I just have to show that there's a copy of the lease. And I leased it to somebody who could make it their primary residence. So I couldn't lease it to you if you have another full-time home, because that doesn't make sense. But I can lease it to somebody who, I'm just kicking my son out. It's $27,000, get out of the house. You're gonna live up there. I can lease it to anybody who could make that their primary residence. Whether they do or not isn't the issue. The issue is, could they, right? So I might find somebody, and a lot of times what we do, especially up in cottage country, is I say, well, look, lease the property out to someone for a year, do an amendment, or lease the property out to a friend, a family member, whatever, for a year. Tell them they can come up and stay anytime they want on the weekends or during the week, but the weekends are yours. As long as you've got a lease in place, you get your money back and nobody's anyone. Okay, but if you don't have a lease, you're going to pay that money. If you transfer ownership and you say, this is now my rental property and this is my primary residence, you're going to shoot yourself really bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you postpone? So I buy a new construction condo.
Yep.
I say it's going to be my primary, so the builder pays the HST.
Yep.
And after occupancy, 3 days later, I decide I'm going to rent it out.
Okay.
So I get a 1-year lease.
Yep.
So I can claim the $27,000 rebate.
Yep. 97% of all the claims I do on a monthly basis are exactly what she's talking about. Okay? The lawyer calls me up and says, look, you need to give me $24,000 unless it's your primary residence. It's my primary residence. Right? I don't pay my $24,000. The next day I go out and I lease the property. I file the other paperwork. So I first filed for the new home rebate, but then I sent a letter saying, oops, there was a mistake. And I filed for the new residential rebate. The amount of the HST is the exact same. So if you were supposed to pay 24, you're entitled to 24. When it gets to Revenue Canada, they marry the two up and they cancel each other out. You don't pay 24, you don't get 24 back. They will charge you some interest, about $100 a month.
Oh, okay, that's my question.
Right?
The builder paid it.
Actually, nobody paid it. The builder doesn't actually
No, I
pay
know he
the
doesn't
HST.
actually pay it, but I was supposed to pay
Yeah.
it.
So it's your way of getting around having
That's
to pay.
right.
Okay?
Okay, so you
It's not
can
the-
do that.
No problem. It's not the right way to do it, but you can do that. If you have clients who don't want to do that, now I'll talk to you a little bit about us. So as far as the service goes, we help people with the occupancy claims. Right? I told you already, we charge 20%. If people come to us and we don't know who they are, we're probably going to charge them 25 or 30%. But if you're referring them, they're going to get a better rate. Okay? We're only going to charge them if we're successful. With the HST, the market out there, there's about 3 people who do what we do. They all charge percentage based. They charge 15 to 20%. So you're entitled to $24,000. They're going to charge you upwards to $5,000 to get that back. We're going to charge you about $3.25, $325. Because it's just paperwork. It's not that difficult. Okay? So we're going to charge your clients about $325. If they do rentals or they buy properties that they think are new, we can do those for them too, right? We might charge a little bit more because they're a little more confused and a little more difficult, okay? We can also finance the HST. So your client comes to closing, all of a sudden they got to come up with $24,000 and they don't have it, and they're tapped out. They can come to us, we'll pay the $24,000 on their behalf. Right? If not, they're going to loan sharks trying to get the money, or they're putting off closing. Some clients will walk away because they can't pay that $24,000. We'll pay that on their behalf. Yes?
In your services, you also do consultation for how to do things, not to pay HST and stuff
Yep,
like that.
we
So
do
like
all of that too.
builders and stuff.
And we don't charge. That's free. So if your client has questions, no problems. We get probably 4 to 5 calls a month during that 10-day cooling off period. Right? Because they go to their lawyer and they say, and the lawyer says, you know you have to pay HST on this, right? And they go, no, I didn't. Well, yeah, you're going to have to pay about $26,000. Can I get it back? I don't know. Right? At that point, your client's starting to walk away from the table very quickly. Have your client call me. I'll explain to them exactly how it works, and I'll explain to them that they're going to get it all back.
Can they meet you at your office?
They can meet me at my office. They don't need to.
Can you give your email address?
No.
Well,
They can meet me at my office. They don't need to. It's very straightforward. If somebody wants to sell an assignment, I can help them with that as well.
Do you have enough in this book?
What's that?
Go ahead.
Yeah. If somebody wants to flip a new construction property, but they don't realize it's new construction, and you want to explain to them why we're doing it this way, I can explain it. Okay?
So any questions can you make?
Yep. You can email me, you can call me, whatever you like. The key is, your job is to hunt and kill. Your job is to sell properties. Your job is not to focus on, could they pay HST, how do they get HST, what do I do here, what do I do there, trying to understand all the rules. The rules for just the HST program is 192 pages. Really good. Right? Just call me. I'll explain it all to you in very simple terms. I'll explain it to your client. I'll explain it to your client's lawyer who's telling you that you're wrong. Right? And then I'll go out and I'll do a seminar for the lawyer, and the lawyer will, I have no idea. So have them call me. It's not a big deal. Okay? Most questions I can answer under 5 to 10 minutes. Yes?
On the closing date, the buyer finds out that he has to pay $24,000 extra for the HST, and he refuses to close. Or what happens at that point?
Then he walks away from the deal and he loses the money. Or you call me and you say, I've got a client who needs to pay this $24,000 finance. Can you finance it for me? Sure, no problem. I'll pay it on their behalf. I know they're going to get the money back. I'm going to ask for the paperwork and say, okay, can I get a copy of your one-year lease? Can I get a copy of this? Can I get a copy of this? Great. What's your lawyer's contact information? I'll deposit their money into the lawyer's information in about an hour. The lawyer will get money.
You would need a 1-year lease.
Typically, yeah. Unless they're using it as a, let's say it's an assignment, you're buying it, you're moving in. Assignments are where people get hit the most, right? I buy an assignment, nobody ever tells me I have to pay HST at closing. Every builder will tell you you have to pay HST at closing, but nobody tells the client, right? So I just bought an assignment for $700,000, and I got to come up with $24,000. I had no idea, right? They have no idea if they're going to get it back. All of them believe they're not going to get their money back. Okay. Let's say a client does pay their $24,000. They scrape together the $24,000 and they pay it, but they want to get it back. But they want to get it back right away. I can pay it back today. No problem. Right? And we'll do that a lot for investors. One of the problems for investors is they buy 5 units. In theory, they're all going to close a different year, and all of a sudden they all close the same week. Right? And then they got to come up with $120,000. So they put up that $120,000 and they have absolutely no idea how long it's going to take before they get it back. I can give them $120,000 back today. And then they can go out and buy another property or two. Right? Why tie up your money when you want to get in the market? So we can do that for them as well. Does that make sense? Any other questions? I'm done. So I can field questions all day. Thanks.